week on OnStage Blog Theatre Podcast, we are taking you behind the scenes to find out how the Tony production happens. Hi there. Welcome to OnStage Blog Theatre Podcast. I'm Jacklyn Collier. And of course, my lovely co-host is here today, Rachel.
Hi! We're so excited. We have a wonderful guest with us today, and we're talking about the Tony Awards. It wasn't that long ago. And we have Rina Saltzman with us. And Rina, thank you so much for coming talking with us.
It's my pleasure. I'm very excited.
Rita, we have been wanting to have you on the show for a long time. We're so excited we get to chat. But before we dive into all the questions that we have, I'm just going to tell our listeners a little bit about you. So Rita and I have been friends for a while, and I've been very excited about all of the work that she does. She is a 40-year veteran company manager who has worked extensively with many Broadway shows and touring companies. I love this. Starting with a 6-year stint at the American Ballet Theater in the 80s. She's also managed shows like Cats, Mamma Mia, Ragtime, and American in Paris, Billy Elliot. Beautiful, which I love, is one of my favorite musicals. And in 2019, she was elected to the position of Secretary-Treasurer at the Association of Theatrical Press Agents and Managers. Pronouncing that right, Pam?
ATPAM.
ATPAM. It also is a cool little acronym, which I love, where she has been working full-time ever since. So, Rina, thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure. It's very exciting. I love talking about theater. So,
Every time I see you, first of all, Rina is like my go-to person if I want to know if a show is worth seeing or what I should be seeing. I know that I always need to ask Rina. I'm like, okay, Rina, what should I be seeing? What's going on? But since Tony season, I'm still in the midst of Tony season, like all the excitement is happening. Rina's going to give us a little BTS, but before we dive into all the fun talk about the Tonys, Rina, we would love to just know a little bit more about you. And for people who don't know, what does a company manager actually do?
So, company manager runs the business, the day-to-day business of Broadway, right? We get hired. The hierarchy is producer, general manager, company manager. And on Broadway, we're the day-to-day financial person. We're the day-to-day I'm not going to use the word HR because we're not really supposed to be HR people, but we're in the theater every night checking in with our companies. We're in our offices all day and then go to the theater at night, and we're kind of like we're the producer representative in the theater. Mm-hmm. But the skills so you kind of take stage managers and company managers, and we're like this. They're our greatest partners in the business. All my best friends, literally best friends, are stage managers. And because of the shows and the closeness that you come to when you're doing a show. And we're partners in how we run a show. We have to be, because stage manager actually can't do certain things without asking for my permission for money, right? You can't hold a rehearsal, an unplanned rehearsal, without my doing a budget for it, right? Mm-hmm. And so in the microcosm of theater, anything that happens front of house, from the apron to the street, I'll say, it's in our world, and anything that happens behind the apron, behind the curtain, is totally the stage manager's work.
That's exciting too, the relationship that you have. It sounds like a very symbiotic relationship.
It is, and it has to be. And, we're very privileged to work with the best people in the business. You don't get to Broadway for nothing. You have to work hard to get to Broadway.
So how did you get there? Like, what was your path as far as education and experience to get to where you're at?
So my origin story is that I was a theater kid, but I'm not a performer. I come from a family who did perform. My father was an amateur actor. My brother is still a musician. My uncle directed community theater, so I was always around theater. I grew up in Jersey City, which is 5 minutes away from. It's basically a suburb of Manhattan. And my parents were theater goers. So, I went to Rutgers, Douglas College, which is now Rutgers University as a whole. And I knew I kind of wanted to do something with theater, but I'm not an actor, right? I'm not a performer. And so I saw a production. I saw the first year of A Chorus Line. I was very lucky. And I saw the original company of A Chorus Line. And I'm not going to tell you how many times I saw the original company of A Chorus Line because I probably was like selling things to do that. And I went home after the first time I saw it and I told my parents I had to be part of this, that like I had no choice. I needed to be a theater major, and God bless my parents because they were amazing people. They said, okay, you'll figure out what you're going to do. So I basically created my own major. I did a lot of backstage work, and I started out as a lighting designer, and I knew I'd never make it as a lighting designer. So I started working at the Douglas Cabaret, and I was kind of their administrator. You know, I was doing a lot of work with them and producing. And I'm not entrepreneurial, but I know how to run a business. And I knew that was where I was going to end up. Started taking business classes, have a master's degree in performing arts management at NYU, from NYU. And got really lucky after a bunch of like crazy jobs. Like I worked on the soaps, I worked at the Met Opera, I worked for a really bizarre producer very eccentric producer for a while. And then I was working at CBS and I read an ad in what I don't think it exists anymore. Maybe it does, TCG's Art Search. That said American Ballet Theater assistant company manager must travel. That was the whole ad, period. I had a family who didn't like to fly. So I was like, oh, I really like to travel because I've never been anywhere. And I got the gig. That was it. I was the assistant for a year. I got promoted in my second year. I left ABT after 6 years, and that was traveling around the world with the greatest dancers in the world. I mean, truly the greatest dancers in the world. I got a gig. I got hired to do Cats, and from Cats, that's it. And I'm one of those people who I'm going to knock every piece of fake wood in my apartment. I've only been unemployed for about a total of 6 weeks since my first job.
Oh, wow.
So
that's incredible in a life of
I always say
theater.
that I'm the luckiest girl in show business.
Yeah.
I also have kind of even if sometimes it hasn't worked out the way I wanted to, I rarely say no. If somebody offers me a job, I'm like, okay, I'll try it and hopefully it'll work out. And I'm going to admit sometimes it hasn't. I've left shows for various and sundry reasons, but I've been doing this since 1986, and this part of the world since 1986. And it's been an incredible career. And I will just state that I got elected to my position at ATPAM, which I call myself the company manager of company managers, press agents, and theater managers. That's what I am, in December of 2019. So I learned how to do this. Yeah.
So you got what a time.
Yeah, what a time.
Probably the luckiest girl in show business.
So I get elected and I start learning how to do the gig because it's not like something you study.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden your entire membership is out of work for a year and a
Yeah.
half. And they were amazing. They still are. They're the best, company managers, theater managers. Theater managers are the people who run the theater, right? And company
Mm-hmm.
managers and theater managers are on the same contract.
Mm-hmm.
We have the same skills. Uh, Theater managers just deal with the house staffs at the theater, the ushers, the box office, the concessions, the porters, the backstage door, all those really important jobs that nobody thinks about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I represent company managers, theater managers, and press agents for Broadway and touring. And we have
Mm.
contract at the Kennedy Center,
Wow.
the Music Center of Los Angeles. We have a member in Detroit at the Fisher. So we're not just New York, but mostly New York. We have over 500 active members of the union, and as I said, we represent Broadway managers and also touring managers, and press agents for both sides of the Broadway business.
That's great. That's really interesting to
So
learn about.
I'm curious, Rena, you're a Tony voter and you know quite a bit about Tony production. Is that from your role at ATPAM, or is that something that's completely separate from that?
No, that was a negotiated thing between the Broadway League, the Wing, and ATPAM. I'm going to
Oh,
say it's probably like 30 some odd years ago. I've been a Tony voter since I was on the board of ATPAM for years before I got elected to this position. And so I've been a Tony voter. I don't even know how long at this point, but it's easily, I'm guessing, close to 20 years. But it is because of my position at APPAM.
can you tell us a little bit about what it means to be a Tony voter, what you get to do, what happens? I find it fascinating that this is part of your job, is to do something that for most people, it's like, oh, oh my gosh, I get to go to the theater. Like, it's such a rare thing for most people. We would love to hear all about it.
Sure. So I always say it's not that I get to go to all the shows, it's that I have to go to all the shows.
There is a difference there. It's not just for fun. You're like, I gotta go.
And
Yeah.
that's not saying anything bad about my industry. I love seeing shows. It's a very privileged position to be in. We get invited. We can't officially see the show before it opens.
Mm.
Um, so, and this will go into a little bit about, I think, what the topic is. There are nominators, and nominators can see the show before it opens for the Tonys, because we all know that sometimes shows don't last long enough, right? Sadly. But then the Tony voters get invited. I think there's a 2 week period. Once it's open, there's a 2 week, I may be quoting that wrong, period that you have to send out an invitation to the voters. And then we schedule our shows, and sometimes you're able to fit that into your schedule, very easily. Sometimes not. I have working members who work every night who are Tony voters. So they have to kind of see shows on their day off or take a night off from their own work job. And everyone I know takes it very seriously. Um, and I as well, although I always seem to end up in April having to schedule like so many shows because I'm late on seeing shows, and that's crazy. Although I did take a 2 week trip to Europe this spring, so it's my own fault, right? Um, and then I came back and had to see all of these shows, and I will tell you, sometimes they mush in your head. You're like, oh my God. I did do 2 weeks of, and I live in New Jersey, so I try not to come in on the weekends if I don't have to. So there were many weeks where I saw 4 shows in a row, 4 shows in a row. And again, it's a privilege. And I take it very seriously. I don't even read a review before I see a show, because I want to walk in and
Yeah.
feel the show. I don't want to have somebody else's voice in my head. The only exception to that is I don't like horror. So if I think something's going to scare me, I will do everything to find out what the scary parts are before I go.
You get the spoilers. Yeah.
Including telling the company managers, I'm like, of Stranger Things, I'm like, you have to tell me what the jump scares are because I won't make it through.
What does the Tony voters do about shows, particularly? It seems like a lot of that happens with plays a lot of times that have closed.
Well, I mean, we try and see, plays in the fall, you go see. First of all, you want to get them out of the way. Like, you really need to start in September. I guess August is Paranormal Activity is coming up. And so that'll be my first show. And you just try and get those shows done so that one, you can say you've seen them. Now there are a lot of out of town Tony voters because all the tour producers, presenters who are Tony voters. So they come in, usually they'll make a week of it and just come in and see, later in the season and see whatever they can, or they will literally fly in. The sad part is a lot of fall shows don't necessarily always get recognized because they happen in the fall. So
is there any kind of recording or something like that they can watch if it's a show that's closed and they haven't seen it?
Absolutely not. They are not allowed to do that. And everything's done on an honor system. We log into a portal and we have to tell them when we've seen the show, but it's not being checked against. I don't believe that it's being checked against anything. Which I guess is similar to, if you were voting on the Oscars and you can turn on a movie for 5 minutes and stream it and walk away. You can still say you've seen the show, right? Or seen the movie. It's an honor system and we all, really work hard to make sure that we're honest about it. I did not vote. I will admit I did not vote in one category this year because I did not see both shows. All the shows that were in that category.
Yeah. Since you're obviously involved on projects or have been in the past, how do you try to be as objective as possible in your votes?
If any producer tells you they didn't vote for their own show, they're lying to your face.
Yeah, that's fair. That's good to know. Yeah.
You literally can't be, because anyone who works on a show and you've put, 12 months to, sometimes we're a year ahead of the Tonys. Sometimes not a year ahead because that wouldn't be in the season, but you're working. Sometimes we're hired a year ahead of the Tonys, right? In prep, and you're putting your heart and your soul into it. If you're a Tony voter and it's your show, you are voting for your show. Period. I will not believe anyone didn't vote for their show. And look, and you also have to live through all the Tony stuff that happens, during the once the nominations come through. And I think I wrote this to you, Jax, that maybe I didn't, but there was a point I did an American in Paris, which is one of my favorite shows.
I saw that.
Thank you. Yeah, did you like it?
I saw that.
I should say thank you, but did you like it?
I did like it, yes. Yes. That was long before I was a theater critic, but yes, I did.
I mean, for me, it was magical because it was also 8.5 weeks in Paris, which nobody's going to sneeze at. All through the process, everyone told us we were going to win Best Musical. Everyone. There wasn't a single person that came out of that show that didn't say, "Oh, you're going to win." And the day after the Tonys, we were at the ad meeting, which always happens the day after the Tonys. And my producer stood up and said, "Well, that proves that everyone lies." So they don't want to tell you, they're not going to vote for your show, but you're in. So from from pre-production to opening night to Tony Awards, your heart is so in it, and you're working 70-hour weeks, and you're working, your fingers to the bone typing. Not that, look, there are harder jobs than mine in the world. I don't have to like lift anything heavy. But you put your heart into it. You're never not going to vote for your own show. It's just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not a concept that anyone's going to tell you. Sure, let me vote for somebody else's show. No.
As far as Tony voters goes, like I understand that you're not a monolith, but like who else are Tony voters? Like it makes sense to me that you're a Tony voter with everything you've done, but I don't actually even know the people that would make up the Tony voters.
So members of the league, the Broadway League, members of the theater wing. I don't, because I'm not a league member, I don't know what qualifications you have to become a Tony voter within the league. I think you have to have worked on a number of productions or produced a number of productions. Various unions are Tony voters. And I don't want to get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the United Scenic Artists have an agreement to be Tony voters, Actors Equity, if you're on their boards or if you're in administration. And I may be wrong about United Scenic Artists, and SDC, I think too. SDC is directors and choreographers. So there are various unions that boards that make up the Tony voting, but the bulk of it is the league and the wing members.
Because when you said about them being out of town, I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Like I actually didn't think that there would be Tony voters that were out of town that would have to get there. So that's really interesting to me.
And there's a lot of talk, and I'm not sure. I think it's maybe not correct, but there's a lot of talk about the road being kind of a block of voters. I do think that they definitely some vote their hearts and some vote their business, right? You want whatever the next big show that you're going to have in your season to be the Tony Award winner, right? But I don't think you can create a block that way. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of theater presenters around the country. So I think that's a misconception. But there's probably a little fact to it too, that I just don't think they get into a room and say we're going to vote for this show over that show. I don't.
Right. Like a strategic, yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious as far as the broadcast itself, if a show decides they want to perform, and I know there's a fee for that, what goes into make that decision, and then also what song they're going to perform, how they're going to stage it, all of those kinds of things as far as the Tonys performance goes.
So the first thing I have to tell you is that shows do not decide that they're going to perform or they want to.
Oh, okay.
All shows want to perform. Every show wants to perform. It's the night that you get the most eyeballs of people who are interested in our industry and want to see the shows.
That makes sense.
It is the Tony Awards that decide who are going to perform, period. And it's only shows that are nominated at this point. There have been years where they might give some time to a non-nominated show, but that's always controversial. Because where do you stop, right? So, and I'm not part of those decisions, so I wouldn't know about that part. But what happens is every single musical, not show, every single musical, because plays used to have some space within the awards, but that doesn't really happen anymore, other than a clip here, a clip there. Every musical will budget to be on the Tonys. They will put a Tony budget into their original budgets. If they're smart, they will. And then the way Broadway accounting is done is you accrue money each week in each category of expenses. So you're basically, from every box office week, you're putting money into an accrual to cover a Tony expense.
Okay.
Whether you use it or not, that's a different story. So every show has the aspiration to be on the awards, but you have to be nominated. And then the process is nominations come out, and then the Tony producers have already probably seen your show. They should, I believe, have seen all the musicals, the new musicals, and revivals. And then you start having meetings with the producer. First, you have a meeting with your own director, your own team, your producer. The producer and director sometimes may not agree on what, they want to show on an award,
Yeah.
right? A big number can cost upwards of $200,000 because the production pays to be on the show.
Right.
So do you do one person singing? Which isn't going to sell any show, really?
And sometimes they do like a medley, and sometimes they do just one song. And
well, because you want, a really good director will want to show. That's where the tension comes in, right? A director wants to show their best work, obviously. A producer may want to show the most commercial part of the show, right? And that might not match. And there is some negotiation that happens there. And then the Tony Awards has their own opinion. So all three factions meet and
well, it has to be like family friendly, so that could be a factor in certain shows of what they could do.
Or, I mean, I can't speak to what's family friendly anymore.
Yeah, fair.
I don't know what that means. No, honestly, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, the awards are an evening show. It doesn't always cater to even I mean, we're not like talking R-rated, but it's not even, there have been jokes that have been well over PG in the awards.
Yeah.
That
you just couldn't have any like profanity or,
No, but that's because of the network. That's a different, that's a whole different story.
That's true.
Like Rocky Horror, certainly, I
That's
think there
true.
are some people who, although I'll say our audience, like, even if you're not considered, the most family friendly, I guess. Again, I don't know what that means. Production, right? Like, there's a lot of sex in Rocky Horror.
That's true.
And they didn't hide from it.
Yeah.
They didn't hide from it. God bless them. They didn't hide from it. So, I think we're kind of not in that world anymore. You have to go with network standards, but
yeah,
I want to show what the show is. And, we always say that everyone says time warp is what you show because that's the thing that everyone knows, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think that anyone hides from anything anymore. Like Schmigadoon, there were certainly other numbers I might have wanted to see, but that's the number that's going to sell the show. That opening is spectacular. The other people think maybe do Wheels of a Dream, but Wheels of a Dream is two people singing beautifully. It's not, and somebody who literally went through 300 performances of that show, that's not what sells the show. What sells the show are the three factions of society happening in that opening number.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to have different opinions, and it takes a village to come together and figure out. Yeah. And then there's the money part. Because everyone has to get paid, right? Everyone has to get paid, and they're all on union contracts.
Right.
All the actors have to be on a SAG-AFTRA minimum, and then the crew is the crew, and there's lots of overtime.
Yeah,
that happens within a Tony week.
I'm curious for you, Rina, over your years of watching and being involved with the Tonys, if you have in your mind a performance that you think was so incredible for bringing people into the show, and a performance that you're like, ooh, this just didn't sell the show the way that I wish it would have.
So I'm a little maybe not so excited about telling you what I didn't like because, they're all
That's
my
like we don't
people,
have.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna say it's a little hard sometimes to watch the Tonys and be objective about what's happening on the screen for me because I've seen the show,
Mm-hmm.
so I know what I think I would want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I no, and I'm going to say this: the opening number, and I think Lear de Bassinet, I think I'm pronouncing Bassinet, her name right, did a fabulous job with Ragtime. I mean, spectacular as far as I'm concerned as an OG Ragtime.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, if I were going to say if there's any number that would bring people into a show, it's the original Tony performance of Ragtime because
Yeah.
what Graziella, Danielle, and Frank Galati did on that show, specifically Grazi in the opening number, was not something you'd seen on a show before, and they filmed it well, and that's not easy to do on a Tony Awards. And things appear very flat sometimes on TV, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
get the depth of what's happening. And that I thought that number really helped bring people into a show. Um, but it's hard. Did I think Lost Boys brought people in? I hope so, but I'm not 100% sure how, if you're not a Lost Boys person, does that bring you in? And I'm not singling them out. I like the number, right? It's so subjective. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Well,
I'm
I'm
not.
I'm curious as far as Lost Boys because it did bring me in because I was like, oh my God, he's so charismatic. This looks so fun. But I know there was some um buzz around that being the choice because without giving any spoilers, because I think this
Right.
is why they didn't do it, there was some thought back and forth that they could have picked something that might have brought more people in, but was a bit of a spoiler without spoiling, do you
Right.
think that you can speak to your thoughts on something like that with Lost Boys, but also just at large of things of spoiling things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that you're concerned specifically with a show like the Stranger Things, are you going to
Right.
spoil a big moment, or a surprise moment? What was that show? It'll come to me. Sorry, I don't want to take up time thinking about what a show was. But there are certain moments in shows that you really don't want to necessarily show because you want the audience to be able to experience that when they get to the theater. But if you're going to put butts in seats, which is really, honest to God, the only reason we have the Tony Awards, period. I mean, we could do it in a room that's never televised. The Tony Awards are done because we need, as an industry, that night to celebrate our industry and sell tickets. That is what the Tony Awards are for. I mean, the production is for. The award itself is great.
Right.
So, I think, Jax, it's really, really hard I'm trying to think of recent years of what numbers, kind of would spoil something so much
Mm-hmm.
that it ruins the audience's experience in the theater. So I'm not sure you're right. I'm not sure I necessarily would have picked that number.
Right.
I might have picked the number that was the spoiler because
Yeah.
it was spectacular.
Yes, it
Right?
was.
It's a spectacular production.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I get it. I get that,
Yeah.
it's like the flying in Billy Elliot. When we did Billy Elliot, you didn't really want to show all the fly. You didn't want to
Right.
show that number, even though
Mm.
that was a brilliant, beautiful moment, although it is, a small number, really. You need to show the scope and you need to show all those things. Yeah. I don't know if I'm being articulate,
No, no, absolutely. And you said something that I thought was really fascinating that maybe is obvious to other people or should be obvious to me, but honestly wasn't until you said it, that the televising of the Tony Awards is to get butts and seats, is to sell tickets. And to me, you saying that also makes even more sense why someone like Pink would host, because Pink is going to bring in a new audience. So that it just kind of crystallizes a lot more things for me when you put it in those really simple terms that I honestly hadn't thought of before.
I was very annoyed that people were like, "Oh, Pink, why Pink? She's not part of our industry." I have seen Pink, personally seen Pink at so many shows that I attend. Like,
Really?
and it's like, oh, there's Pink again. She is such a theater goer. And you need somebody who, and I think she did a spectacular
Oh,
job.
she killed. She was great.
You need that person.
Yeah.
Was viewership up? I don't necessarily think it was up that much, but she brought something to the show that I think has been missing for a little while.
I would agree, and I feel like she really yes and in everything. I was like, she feels like a theater kid. She can stay. Like when Rachel and I were discussing it, I didn't know how she would be, and then it was like she was in on all the jokes. She was having fun. She was being playful. She was being just the right amount of self-deprecating. But hearing you, lay it out like that what is going to bring people in, and if that's the reason to televise it, makes a lot of sense to me.
And she was a fan, and she's a fan. So she brought the fan perspective to the show, right?
Yes.
She fangirl.
Yeah. Yes, which I actually think was deeply needed because we can watch it through her eyes then too.
That's right. That's right. So, Rachel, did I answer your actual?
Yeah, no, you did. Well, and it sounds maybe cynical to somebody. Oh, we got to get butts in the seats, but like as somebody who isn't in New York, like I actually really appreciate getting that little peek, of what's because it's the only time that and the Macy's parade are the only times I get to see it, and I want to know.
Right. So, I mean, the whole thing comes down to when you're looking at a Tony performance and the budget, that budget's in advertising.
Yeah,
That's where it sits. Because
Mm-hmm.
because also, quite frankly, if you don't get a nomination, you need to spend that money on more advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can
So it
take
goes right back into it anyway.
right, it will go back into it anyway. Yeah, yeah. And it's an important part of our business.
Yeah.
We couldn't do without it. Uh, you know, I'd like to see all 3 hours on network, but that's not going to happen ever again. So
Mm-hmm.
that's sad to me.
That
Yeah,
is sad.
that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's sad.
Yeah. Well, I guess, do you feel like what is a trend in on Broadway that you think is exciting that you're seeing right now, and what's maybe one that you're like not as excited about?
I think live theater is wonderful and I think it needs to be applauded. And I think the commercial theater needs, as all the artists of the caliber that we're seeing right now employed on Broadway. That said, I don't think everything, and again, Jax will know this. I don't say anything negative about our business because my people work on each show. So I would never publicly say anything negative. Um, but that said, I do think that there are shows sometimes that come into Broadway because there's a theater available and are not necessarily ready for prime time, as we say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a trend I think we've been seeing over the last few years because producers get very excited that there's a Broadway house available, and there haven't been, right? Every theater was lit this year, like for a long time. I mean, I guess the Schubert after Hell's Kitchen was dark for a fair amount of time, but I'm not. I'm not of the opinion that a show should come in before it's ready to come in. That's my opinion. So that's a trend that have a little bit of a problem with. What I love, the trend that I really love is the small show, the small musical. I'm not saying you have to be 2 people or 4 people because I want to see as many people employed as possible. But I also think that maybe Happy Ending has, allowed people to think that there can be small, and believe me, that's not a small musical. It's small in people, but that is a lot of musical on stage when you think about the production. It's very expensive to keep open, actually, not on the cast side, on the technical side. Um, but I think it's allowed people to think that you don't necessarily need to be a $32 million production to be able to be successful on Broadway. One of my favorite shows this year is Two Strangers. Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York, I should say. What a title.
That
It's so good, right? But you can't you also can't populate all of Broadway on that. Everyone wants The Lion King. People still, Wicked is Wicked. Lost Boys is Lost Boys. You couldn't do that show without the enormous number of people who are in that show, because of the scope of it, and and the technical side of it.
But I know some people like roll their eyes. Oh, another show made off of a movie, or another show, a jukebox musical, or anything like that. Are you pretty much you're good with any of those kinds of broader trends?
So you can't say to me, you can, but I'm going to say someone couldn't really say to me, you don't like a jukebox musical when I've worked on Mamma Mia and Beautiful. And Mamma Mia was 10 years of my life. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I did Fosse. That was considered kind of a jukebox musical as well, if you think about it. So, I think that I would like to see more original musicals, absolutely, but that's a 10-year process. It takes 10 years to get from, oh, I have this great idea to, oh, I'm opening at the Imperial. And I do think, Mamma Mia is an interesting kind of trajectory. We didn't know. I was the original company manager of the pre-Broadway tour. And not a lot of people know it had a pre-Broadway tour. And that was the original Toronto company that went on tour in the US. And I'm a big fan of let's try it out somewhere else before we bring it into New York. But so, we didn't know it was going to be popular, silly us, in the US, because ABBA wasn't as well known in the US as they were in Europe. And then we got to San Francisco and we did our first production in November of 2000. Yes. And by the time we closed, we were selling seats that were, I will tell you, there were seats in the orchestra that you could not see the show, period. You could only hear the show. You couldn't see them. And for a good month, we were like, we can't sell those seats. How can we sell those seats? We can't do that. The box office was like, we can sell them. We're just going to tell them, you won't be able to see the show. And guess what? People bought them for like $20 a piece.
They could hear it, I guess. And that was fine with them.
That's all they cared about. And so, I think I'm making a very roundabout way of saying this. I don't think there's a trend that I'm seeing right now of Broadway shows that, other than they're coming in too quickly, maybe, but I get why. I think that's the trend that I'm most concerned about. The trend that I'm not really concerned about is if you have a fun idea to bring, like, I personally love a Bruce Springsteen musical, because I think his storytelling is incredible. So bring me that,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I do think that I'd like to see musicals. I'd like to see producers, and this is my union opinion, right? Because I'm going to be a little uniony and say, labor gets the bad rap sometimes of costing the most money. We don't cost the most money. People should get paid what they should get paid, and people need to live in New York City, which is not easy. But advertising is the biggest cost of a Broadway musical, not labor. I'd like to see producers make smarter decisions um, about how much they're spending.
Mhm.
And that's not to cut people. People are, if you don't have people, you're not going to have a Broadway show, period. It's just not going to happen. You have to have the people. We're not going to be replaced by AI.
No,
It's not.
no.
They may try, but we're not. So, I'd like to see people act smarter and look, I'm also sitting on the sidelines. So I'm going to say this as somebody who doesn't do this anymore. I'd like people to really look at the crazy amount of kind of technical and things that you may not need necessarily. And some producers don't say no to some directors. I'll say that. That'll be my controversial thing of the day.
Like whatever you want.
And scenery that gets millions of dollars that sometimes gets left in the alley because it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And some things don't work,
Did you have a highlight of this year's Tonys, either in a winner or a performance or something that you thought was your favorite moment?
I'm gonna how do I say this? My favorite moment was seeing Ragtime win because it's very close to my heart. But also I was I was a little surprised because there was a definite Cats movement, Jellicle Ball movement.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked on Cats also, of the things that I loved about the awards this year was there was an inclusivity that factor that I really like. There was I do wish, I'm going to be a little critical. I do wish they would recap the winners from the first hour. I think that's a misstep.
Yes.
I personally think that they need to. I'm not producing those. In fact, this year was the first year for this new producing directing team, and I thought they did a great job. That's really my only criticism is please recap those awards from the first hour. I thought the first hour was hard because we were having troubles getting, there was a lot of issues.
Buffering and yeah.
It's not good. But again, I think we're stuck in that world. Performances. Everything was good. Everything was well done. Everything was nothing. I will say nothing like made me go, that's spectacular. But nothing also made me go, oh, I don't particularly like that. I didn't feel that. I just felt it was a really good, solid award show.
Mm-hmm.
I love Schmigadoon. I do. I love Schmigadoon. I thought they did a great job. I think it's a great, fun, old-fashioned-ish musical. I think Chris, I have a personal friendship for years with, not close friends, not like we see each other all the time, but Chris Gattelli was in my Cats company. And I think he's just a fantastic director, choreographer, and you don't get a lot of people who can choreograph and direct really well. I've been very privileged to work with one of them, Chris Wheeldon, but I think it was just an overall good show. I don't think anything stuck out for me, but also again, all of it was so present for me because I'd just seen most of those shows, so it's a little hard for me to be an audience member. I'm going to say hard for me to be that.
I'll say as someone who hasn't seen Schmigadoon and had no interest in seeing it after the Tony's performance, I was like, oh, I would love this. And I think so. It's interesting to hear you say that because it definitely was something that resonated with me when I had no interest in seeing it before. So it's like, okay, they're doing something right with choosing that. And also having not really realized that it was so much of that old musical theater charm combined with like the modernity of the two worlds colliding. I was like, oh, amazing. Like this is really exciting to me. Rita, before we let you go today, because this has been so informative and fun. Like Rachel and I, like we love getting the BTS on things like this, but we would love to know what keeps you so in love with theater after 40 years in the business.
I went into this business specifically to work with artists, period. That's and that's interesting now that I'm not. It's hard for me. There's some times that I'm like, kind of miss this. Like I'm not invited to the Tony. I can go to the Tony Awards. Don't get me wrong. I could go to the Tony, but I would love to be invited to the rehearsal, and I'm not anymore. I'd really like to see the rehearsal because that's actually the most fun you can have in a day on Broadway if you work in this industry. Um, uh, what keeps me going after 40 years is that this community is so amazing. And even when we're challenged, look, I'm a labor person. I am a union leader. There are times where the league and I have to go like this. And yet we walk out and we're still part of this amazing industry and we're still friends. We will argue. I have a responsibility on behalf of my membership to make sure that their contract is the best contract I can get for them, or the contract is being adhered to, right? And that keeps me going in my new job. And what kept me going for years again, working 7 days a week for many years, working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, traveling every Monday, to a different city, is that the people make this industry what it is. And they're just as warm and giving and wonderful as can be, as a whole, right? You have every show has a challenge, every business has a challenge, but as a community, this is one amazing community.
Theater people are the best people.
All over the country.
Yes,
no matter whether you are doing your high school musical, your grade school play, I grew up in community theater. I have a firm belief in community theater as a great place to train. And every single part of this industry and this community is just, we can't do it without each other. We have to be in it together in order to make it work.
Yes.
Well, this has been so fascinating. Thank you so much for talking with us and giving us this behind the scenes. It's so interesting to learn about and to get to meet you. And thank you so much.
My pleasure. It was lovely to meet you and Jax always.
Always good to see you and get to talk theater. Is there somewhere that you would want people to follow along on your adventures that you want to share with us?
Okay, so I'm very active on Facebook, but I don't accept a lot of friend, I have a lot. I mean, too many, I think, at this point. ATPAM, the Association of Theatrical Press Agents and Managers, which is an IATSE Local. We are part of the IATSE, is at ATPAM1 on all the on Facebook and on Instagram. I'm terrible at Instagram. Terrible.
Well, we'll put all that in we'll try to put that in the description.
ATPAM itself has an Instagram.
Great.
We can follow them.